This is Spiritual Biz Chat with Kimberly Maska. Inspiration for spiritual entrepreneurs. Join our spiritual family at spiritualbizmagazine.com.
Gil, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
This is a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very excited to hear about your journey and what you've built. So let's hear a little bit about your personal journey down the path of creating this business and being the intuitive that you are.
Wow. That'll take a good 3.5 hours, but I'll give you the short version. Basically, before I began in this particular business, I was working in the film industry, and it wasn't all of this evolved and happened through my mother's passing. She had early onset Alzheimer's, and my sister and I went through about 6 devastating years of dealing with that. And it was shortly after my mother passed, after she crossed over, maybe about 3 or 4 months, where some really bizarre things started happening here in my home that were just not rationally explainable. And long story short, I ended up going to a medium to find out if my mother was trying to make contact with me. And lo and behold, she was, and I found out that all the things that had been going on was her trying to get my attention so she could reach out and make this connection with me. And during my visit to the medium, I mean, it was just the communication and the messages I was receiving were so clear and accurate. I mean, it was astonishing, Kimberly. In fact, after the first session, I made an appointment to come back in another couple weeks, and I had like a list at that time for the second session. I had a list of like 30 questions that I wanted to ask about what was going on the other side, different things about my mother's life. And, I went into this second session, and everything was being answered without me even asking the questions. So this just confirmed everything for me. I had no doubt when I left that I had made an authentic connection with my mother. But then after that, I couldn't figure it out. I was thinking about it, and I thought, how is it possible that someone could be dead, as we know death, leaving the body? Her body was cremated, and there she is somewhere else in the ether speaking to me, having knowledge of everything that's going on in my life. And I mean, I couldn't figure out, like, how is that possible? And I finally just came to the conclusion that we are all eternal, that consciousness lives on, that love lives on, and that we're eternal. And it was once that I really, truly accepted that concept and fully embodied it, things began to shift for me. And again, the complete story would be way too long, but what happened is once I accepted that concept, I began opening up just naturally. I started to know things about other people that I shouldn't know. Other deceased loved ones would come to me to ask me to deliver messages to their loved ones, and not from my own family, just neighbors, even people I didn't know. And I just kept sort of answering this call, whenever spirit would show up, or if it was a deceased person, I would do my best to find their loved one to deliver the message. And I just slowly, well, probably not so slowly, began opening up to my own inner guidance as my own personal spirit guides began communicating with me and guiding me and leading me. And from that point, I started working with others to help them connect to their own inner guidance through their spirit guides. And that's the short version of how I got to where I am today.
That's such a beautiful story, and I always love hearing the confirmation because I believe that we're here forever. Our souls are, right, and it's so nice to when you hear it and you're like, okay, we are on the right path.
Hmm.
we are.
Absolutely. And it's one thing to, I should preface that before this happened, I mean, I didn't even know what a spirit guide was. I didn't believe in angels. I just thought they were mythical characters or creatures. I didn't really have any spiritual inclination. I mean, I was open to things. I was open and interested about reincarnation, but again, I didn't have any um, formal training in this area. I didn't really read much about it. I was just going on about my life, and then bam, I was like sort of hit upside the head and just pulled into um, this spiritual realm.
Amazing. Just to be, it's amazing when we open ourselves up how things come in.
Hmm.
So now you're getting visitors from various people alive and not to communicate. So what made you then decide to turn this into a business from receiving the information and going, okay, this is interesting, and now let's actually turn this into a business?
Well, I think first it was acknowledging that I was being guided or called to do this work. Um, and then it was deciding whether or not I would step up to the plate to answer this calling in the form of creating a business for it or just something I might do on the side. Um, and then the next step for me in the proactive sense was putting up a web page to tell people who I am and what I do. Um, and then about a year or so of floating around on my own, not knowing what I was doing, I decided to hire a business coach because this was a field of business and marketing I knew nothing about. And I realized, well, if this is going to be a business, if I'm stepping up to the plate to answer this calling and creating a business for it, the business has to be lucrative. I was used to making really good money in the film industry as a production designer, and now here I am in this brand new business that I didn't know anything about. Um, and yes, I was attracting clients and I was making some money, but it was more like pocket change, comparison to having a full on career and making a decent living. So I realized I was going to need some outside help from a business coach to help guide me into creating a sustainable business platform and learning how to market.
It's like such a smart thing. 'Cause it's funny, we take it, especially when it's a gift like that. I find people they treat it more as a hobby, and it's a gift, so they just kind of they do readings for free. And it's like at some point you have to transition into making a business. And that was the smartest decision was to hire someone to say, here's how you're going to do it.
Absolutely, or just to discuss it with me. And the way that it came about was so perfect for me and natural because I had conversed with my spirit guides about getting a business coach, which they thought was a great idea. And I asked, well, what should I do? Should I go on the internet and start searching, researching business coaches? And they said, no, don't do anything. Just hold on to that intention that you have to work with the perfect coach that's right for you, and you'll know when the perfect person comes along. So I actually ended up signing up with a client of mine who had been working with me for about a year and a half off and on. And in one of her sessions, she had told me that she had decided with the help of her own spirit guides that she was letting go of the business she was currently in, and she decided that she wanted to become a business coach.
Like,
And this is a woman with tons of business experiences in retail stores. And at that moment, my guide said, this is the person you've been waiting for. Sign up now.
That's
And
fantastic.
and I believe I may have been her first client. If not, I was in the first few there. And I said, I'm ready to sign up. And she kind of laughed. I said, no, I'm serious. I'm signing up. You're going to be my business coach. And it was perfect for me because she knew me and she knew my business. And she had been opening up to her own inner guidance. And I thought, what could be more perfect in a business coach for me than somebody that's good in business, that knows what they're doing, that has been working with me and knows me and my business, and also uses their own inner guidance to make decisions.
What a perfect match. Your guides were right. Just wait and she'll come.
But it's the waiting part that can get annoying at times because you don't know how long you'll be waiting. But that's the whole point about your inner guidance, is learning to trust.
They know best. They definitely know best. So, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges with marketing in the mind, body, spirit arena? Because you were fortunate enough to have a coach, but I'm sure you see other people struggle, and you may have struggled with things too about putting your
Oh,
gift out there.
I did, even with the coach. I mean, I battled my coach at times to the point where she would have to say, please just humor me. Would you please just do this and let's see what happens? And of course, she was almost always right, 99 and 9/10%. um, it's hard to say because everybody's in a different situation. But I, well, one thing I think is that most people in the mind, body, spirit field um, either feel guilty that they charge money for the services, because the kind of services that they are basically being spiritual servicing on some level or aspect, um, or they completely undervalue the transformational service that they do offer to people, or both. So starting from this point, it's difficult for them to understand that this is a business, or at least needs to be a business, and has to be marketed appropriately as a business venture, no matter how heartfelt their services are. And then truly stepping into the understanding that their service is worth charging for. And until you reach this point, you're really going to be battling with yourself and valuing, hard for me to say that word, undervaluing.
It's a word we
that
don't want in our vocabulary.
that's something to look at. Undervaluing your business and yourself. And the other thing is that most people in this mind, body, spirit business realm don't like marketing and really hate feeling salesy, because of the type of service that they offer, and they don't really see it as a business. Um, and often they don't realize that it takes a business model to serve people and to serve them properly. And if you don't have that business model, you will have a hard time bringing your service out to enough people. And aside from not being able to make enough money to sustain yourself in your business, the worst thing is that those people that are out there that could benefit from your service will never have the opportunity to work with you.
Right? If they don't know that you're there, they can't come to you and be transformational. And
A- Absolutely. And so I think that those are the first two, like, primary things that really get in people's way in this business, is the whole idea of charging for their services and undervaluing, what they do.
yeah, and I think I like how you said that they don't realize how much impact they have. And it's interesting because sometimes you can't really measure it, right? You're going to come in, you have a spiritual type gift, and you're going to transform someone. And it's like, how do you measure that? Because it's not like a business thing where it's like, you're going to make $10,000 more a month. But it's so life changing. And I think it's even more valuable than a lot of other things that people pay much more for.
It is. And that's one thing that I had to learn. Just being told that wasn't enough. I had to learn it and I had to feel it. And I'll give you a small example. Um, way back when I first started working with people, and I was doing very long sessions. They weren't just an hour long. Sometimes they would either be a half day or sometimes they'd go a full day because I was taking people on these fantastic, amazing uh, journeys of discovery. It was sort of like going to a spiritual Disneyland for the day. And at that time, I think I was charging like $375. So I have this one young guy come in for a session, and it's in the evening now, and we've ended his probably like 14-hour session. And he sits up and he said, wow, that was really amazing. And he said, you know, I don't want to offend you, he said, but I have to ask you, like, why do you charge like so little money for what you do? And at that time I thought, well, I was getting $375 a day. And I thought, that's not bad. And I said, well, how much do you think I should charge? And he said, I don't know, I would charge at least like $2,500 for this. I mean, where else can you get this? And when he said $2,500, I mean, I just like, I almost blacked out completely. I just couldn't even like fathom it, not from the point of where I was at, where I thought I'm lucky to be getting $375 a day. So he told me that he had been to some, I don't know what it was, spiritual growth conference or something in Las Vegas, and he met this other guy there who was telling him about me, and this other person had had a session with me, and he said, you got to go check out this guy, you got to go do a session with him, it'll blow your mind. And so this client that I was now speaking to said that he went to my website and he was reading about the work that I was doing. And he said, and then he looked at the price and he thought, $375? How could somebody, work all these hours with you and do all of this, what he claims he's going to do for $375? And he said, the first thing I thought to myself is either you don't know what you're doing, or like you haven't been doing this very long, or you're not very good at what you do. And so I called the guy that recommended you, and he said, no, don't pay any attention to that. I'm telling you, just go do it. Go do the session. So he's telling me all this, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I talked to my guides afterwards, and they said, go for it. So I changed I couldn't go for the 2,500. It was just beyond me at that time. And so I settled on 1,200 to jump up from 375 to 1,200. And that was scary. And I put it on my website, and then nothing happened. And then I had no people coming. And then I got nervous and I asked my guides, I said, well, maybe I should like cut it in half. Maybe I should gradually like climb up. And they said, nope, don't change a thing on the website. Just leave it up there. If you want to make separate deals with people, that's fine, but do not change that number. So I left it on there, and I had no business for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Until, and I wish I could remember what this was that actually happened, but something happened where it kicked in for me, and I realized not only was I worth the 1,200 that I posted, maybe it was because people had started writing back to me and telling me what an incredible transformation they had had, or the transformations they were making in their life, saying that this has changed their entire life. And then I realized not only was I worth the 1,200, I was worth 10 times more than that. And as soon as I really stepped into that, just in my own thoughts and the feeling within and really owning that, then people started to call and were paying it with no question at all.
I love this story because I tell my clients this stuff all the time. And I'm like, if you don't value yourself, they're not going to value you. And when you price too low, they think, well, you must not know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, for the way our society is, the higher you price, the more they value you. Even if they can't afford to work with you, they value you.
So true.
And it's kind of silly because it really makes no difference, but it does make a difference on some level because it's showing that you value yourself
Yeah.
and you value the work that you do and that your work is transformative.
Love, love, love that story. Yep. I hope everyone's listening and taking notes and has an aha moment.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you another quick little story that kind of goes hand to hand with this. So once I started to make a little bit more money, and people were accepting the price, but I didn't really have like a full ongoing stream of clients. So although I stepped into the higher price range, which was great because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to pay my rent and buy food. Um, so I was getting to the point where I needed a little bit of help, and I was thinking of hiring like an assistant or a part-time assistant, virtual assistant, um, and I was looking for someone, and then I thought, no, I should be a little bit more cautious about this and wait until I had a more steady stream of clients before taking on this, um, obligation to pay somebody else. And I remember the moment I was standing in my kitchen making something to eat, and my guide swooped in and they said, nope, that's not the way you do it. That's not the way you manifest. They said you could, but if you do that, you will be on a slow climb up, waiting until something happens, until those steady stream of clients start coming in. If you want the steady stream of clients to come in, jump into it. Just go and hire the assistant, because once you make that choice and you're proactive and you act on it and you hire the assistant, then that's you making that statement or intention by the proactive move that you've made, that you are an entrepreneur that needs an assistant and will probably need more than one assistant soon. You're stepping right into it. You're not waiting until the time is right. You are creating divine order by stepping into it and making that shift. Does that make sense?
Love it. Absolutely makes
And
sense.
so I went forward and I just hired the assistant, even though I didn't think I could really afford it, or I didn't know if I could afford it, ongoing month to month. And that made a shift too. And then more people started coming and everything started changing. So sometimes, I mean, it's good to be clear about what you need to do, and it's good to be, cautious with your funding, but at the same time, you have to take that leap of faith sometimes and just fully step into it.
So true. And it's funny, we laugh when we say, build it, then they shall come. But it's so true. Build it smartly, and have
Build
faith
it
in it.
smartly, but that takes marketing.
Yes.
Because if you just build it, it doesn't necessarily
That
mean
is true.
they will come, because nobody will know it's there. I mean, it does work in a certain degree, because wherever you are in your vibrational frequency, the way that you're showing up in the world, that's what you will be attracting. But I can tell you, in business, I mean, as I'm sure you already know, that it's marketing, marketing, marketing.
Absolutely. So,
And that's showing up.
yeah, and believing in it. So looking at talking of marketing, so what marketing strategy has been the most profitable for you?
Oh, wow. Well, this has been an ongoing learning experience. Um, and it's really a combination. I'm trying to think which is the most. Well, I'd say probably the two most important things are, well, the number one thing is visibility. You have to have visibility in some way. Um, and I would say for me that going on these internet-based telesummits, doing interviews, um, and in traveling the world doing public speaking, are probably the two most prominent strategies up until this point in time.
That makes so much
Um,
sense. Yep.
I'm just starting to venture into Facebook marketing, which I think is going to turn out to be quite lucrative, because Facebook has over 1 billion subscribers, and there's only about 7.8 billion people in the entire world. So that's a huge marketplace to draw from.
Yep.
And I've recently hired someone to just do that. And I'm starting to see that we can pull in people just from strategic ads that we're placing and getting people to come to the website or to opt into specific things. And this is what I'm going to be working on next. And I think that this may end up being one of the most profitable ways of marketing because of the huge body of people that are on Facebook.
Yeah, and you're able to drill down into certain groups, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful thing. And I'll add this little tip that Twitter is actually starting to outperform Facebook in marketing. So if you're going to run ads and you start looking at Twitter ads, that they actually do outperform Facebook ads a bit. So you might want to take a peek into that too once you get your Facebook.
I know nothing about Twitter. I actually have a Twitter account, and at one point I had about 20-some thousand followers, and now it's dropped down to like 9 because I don't do anything with it. I don't make any posts whatsoever. I don't really know how to use it. And I did ask our Facebook marketing guy about it, and he doesn't know anything about Twitter either. So
yeah, it's a bit of a specialty thing. It's a little more difficult because you're running probably 15 ads at a time to see how they're performing, and because Twitter's so quick, but the return on investment is a bit higher in Twitter than it is with Facebook. But they both work beautifully. And I'll say this: I'll throw out a little hint to my listeners and to you, is that there's an awesome application out there called Meet Edgar, and it's meetedgar.com, and it basically is a social media library. So what you do is you build a library of posts for both Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever accounts you want to hook up. Since most people only see a fraction, right? On Facebook, it's like 7% of what they see of your post if it's a professional page. And on Twitter, they come and go so fast. So you can actually build a library of tweets and Facebook posts and put it into Edgar and put it on a schedule, and it will automatically post for you for a lifetime, reusing what you've put in there. So you need to have a substantial library. But once your library is built and you have tweets and you have content, it just keeps running for you, and it will save you so much money in the long run and headache with social media. It's been great.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that out.
Check that one out. And it's not too terribly expensive. I think it's like $50 a month. But you think of what you would pay an assistant to do all your social media stuff.
Oh, God, yes.
Right? You just do it up front and let this thing run. And then you still post your own stuff, what you had for lunch. What people like to put up there throughout the day. But at least it gets your regular stuff out there pretty consistently.
That's great. Great to know.
Lifesaver for me, I'll say that. So social media, so the ads, I'll just touch upon the ads a little bit too, like we talked about the Facebook, is to remind people. Sometimes people think Facebook and they just think it's the posting, which is great. But if you're going to market, you need to advertise and pay for that. And when you start paying for those advertisements, that really, really makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah. That's what we're doing right now. Because even as far as the posting, I honestly don't even have the time to post. I had more time when business wasn't as good. Now the business is flourishing and we're expanding like all over the world. I don't have time to make those posts.
Yeah.
And they're not really the kind of posts that I can have somebody else make because they're coming from my inner guidance.
Right.
They're coming from the messages that are being delivered to me to bring out to the masses. So it's not like I can just have an assistant, just go out and post, what we're having for lunch that day at work or what was happening. I mean, they're more important than that. So I haven't figured out really how to do that. But we do have somebody working on the ads, and that seems to be working well.
Yeah, I'll throw this out. I just had a thought. When you get those downloads from your higher selves, like be able to take it, maybe throw it into an audio, and then hand that audio to someone, and they can take pieces of it and post pieces. That might help, so you can get your message out there, because that's the most important part.
Right. Well, like you said, it's a matter of building up the library of posts and messages, and then you can actually hand that off to somebody else.
Yeah, let it run. So let's talk a little bit about your book, The Other Side of Now, and the process of creating that book and getting it published. Did you self-publish, go traditional, and the things that you learned through that process?
No, it's not published yet because it's not even finished. That's why I
Ah,
said upcoming.
upcoming. Love it.
It's upcoming in stages, in small segments. Again, like I had started on the book, but then once business begins taking off, and you have to step up to the plate if you want to expand. And this year we're completely like in an expansion phase. It's just gone insane, and it slows down the other creative things that I want and need to do, which is like finishing the book. So I've only got a certain amount of the book actually written. Um, but my choice is to go with a publisher, not to self-publish.
Excellent. And what other than getting that from your guides, is there a marketing reason behind that, or it just feels right?
Um, the reason behind it was that with a publisher, it does give, I don't care what anybody says, it gives more credibility um, to the project, because anybody nowadays can write a book or claim that they've written a book and
Right.
slap it up on Amazon or wherever, put it into a Kindle. Um, but I, through conversations with my guides, plural, um, we felt that we should go with a traditional publishing house, because they would also step up behind the marketing, even though nowadays they do require at least first-time writers to have some sort of platform of their own so they can help sell the book as well. But there's a lot more marketing put into the book, and you're taken more seriously on other levels, as far as if your book can be made into a TV show or a movie. It just makes a difference, and we felt that that was the better way to go.
You're right. There's definitely a credibility issue there, and you say, "Oh, I have a publisher." And plus, it just sounds good, doesn't it?
It does sound good, and the other thing for me is that I like working with other people. I'm an idea person. I'm a creative person, and um, it's very complicated to do everything yourself. So when you work with a publishing house, you have a professional editor that's assigned to you. They work with you on the cover, they work with you on marketing, and you have more support behind you than you have if you're putting the book out yourself. And with my book, because my book is a collection of stories, um, I wanted that support because I do intend to have this shopped out for a TV series at some point in time. And that was important to me. It wasn't just how many copies of the book we can sell and how much more money I'll make if I self-publish and promote it myself and put it on Amazon. And not to say that you can't do both, because you can also begin by self-publishing, make money on your book, marketing it yourself, and then interest a publisher afterwards.
That is true. A lot of books happen that way because
Hmm.
there's a platform built already, and they see that the book did well, then a publisher will swoop in and make it hopefully a New York Times bestseller.
Absolutely. But I just felt like I wanted that support in the beginning, because I am doing so many things at once that I need a team. There's no way, with where I'm at today, there's no way I can handle everything on my own.
Yeah, and
There
having
just isn't.
yep, and having that team is so important to get everything done.
It is. I mean, I've got so many people right now to deal with, and people that are helping me. I mean, sometimes it's a whole nother lifetime you need just to deal with the team itself. But without it, I really couldn't expand and do everything that I want to do. And so I do need that backup. I need that support. I also value the ideas that other people bring to the table, in whatever their department is, however they're being hired um, to do whatever they do best. And I love the exchange of those ideas. I mean, ultimately, I have to decide make the final decision on everything, but it's wonderful to have these conversations with other creative and successful people that know what they're doing.
Yep. 2 heads, 4 heads, 5 heads is definitely better than one. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
Um,
have you had any? We all have our ups and downs in business. Is there any amazing success or failure that you had this lesson from that you'd like to share?
hmm, let me think. Well, I mean, there's so many little things and little pitfalls and then little wins, but I would say overall that the greatest success is simply that we are now, reaching more people than ever before, teaching so many more people in the world how to access their own inner guidance and witnessing so many amazing life transformations, you know. Um, and I think about that almost daily and how grateful I am for that, and that it's hard to break it down to how and why that actually occurred because it's so many different things coming together, but even with being grateful for that and saying that that is the greatest success with my business right now, on the flip side I would say that the greatest failure is that even with that, I feel like we're still not reaching as many people as we could. Um, but again, that's still just a process of growing and expanding. And I don't know, am I even answering the question that you actually asked?
You're very close. No, because I think we feel like sometimes and failure might be the wrong and very strong word, but yeah, we feel like we're not moving fast enough, right? So we look at it and we're like, wow, if I could help 10 more people this month or 100 more people, like, how do I get out there? So I think you hit it. I think people will understand exactly what we're getting at.
Exactly. And we always feel that we need to move so much faster or it's not working correctly, but there's steps. Just like life. I mean, you don't, pop out of the womb just being, fully wise and life experienced. You have to live it in
Yeah.
order to gain that experience and to gain that wisdom. So it is a process. It's a journey. It's just a journey. And I don't think there really has been one thing I can think of to say, or even a few things that I could say, like these were actual failures.
Right.
Because if how can you really learn what works and what doesn't work for you and what you need to do if you don't fail? So even something that fails, it may not have worked out as you expected it to work out, but on the other hand, it's an incredible opportunity to learn from. So if you don't have those opportunities to learn from, how can you learn to perfect your strategies, your marketing, your business, your offerings to people? You can't.
You can. It's like one big test.
Exactly.
Life
So, I
test. Yep.
mean, what we momentarily may consider a failure is really just an opportunity for greater success, as long as you look at it that way. And then you can look at the situation and think, okay, well, what didn't work here that we did? Why did it not work? Was there any component of it that did work and that we can carry on further but lose the components that didn't work? So I can't really say that anything was a failure, because even things I may not be doing today that I did before um, helped me to open up to get to where I am today,
Yeah.
where everything is working a lot smoother and we're growing and expanding. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I believe it will to my listeners as well. So, as a spiritual entrepreneur, as we've talked so much about business, and there's always that one piece of software or that that icky marketing business stuff that you can't live without that makes your business transformational. What would that be for you? And it can't be the phone.
Well, I I mean, there's so many different components and softwares because everything's so technical today. And I guess I would say that the one major piece of software is my own inner guidance, because if I didn't have that funneling into my brain and into my system, I would be nowhere. I'd be back where I was like 6 years ago, you know, walking around the planet, not knowing what I should do with myself. Um, but in actual software, I would say that probably Skype.
Mm.
There's no one other piece of software that I think is as important. I mean, I know you said don't say the phone, but Skype has, well, first of all, I communicate with multiple people easily on my team through Skype, because I keep Skype open usually during the day, and I don't have to call everyone, but I can send a quick text message to them to find out what's going on, or they can get my attention. Um, and before that, it enabled me to branch out, because I could, I mean, I had international calling on my phone, but it wasn't available to every single country, and it was difficult sometimes. But the way I was able to easily expand my business, because in the beginning, I was doing private sessions locally only. You'd have to come to my home and we would work together, or you could fly me out and I'd come to your home. But it was one-on-one. And my business coach suggested that, why don't I try using Skype? And I didn't really know what Skype was, but when I looked at it, I said, oh God, no. How can I do a personal, one-on-one session with somebody through this stupid thing on the computer? I said, we need to be there. We need to see each other. We need to, touch each other. We need to, eat together and just go through this experience. And she begged me to try it. So I downloaded this ridiculous thing called Skype and started to play around with it, and then realized how much better it was than even the phone. And that you could also easily record your sessions, and that it had video too. And that changed my business model, because I went from working with people locally one-on-one to working with people all over the world in such an easy and seamless manner. And to be honest with you, I can't say this for every session, but I found that many sessions were actually better over Skype, because when you come in and meet with someone in person, everybody has expectations. Many of these people would be coming to me for the first time. They don't really know me, other than the consultations we've had. They feel that they have to look their best. They have performance anxiety, even though I'm going to be guiding them through the sessions. And this way, it was easier for people just to do it in the comfort of their own home. We didn't even use the video. Isn't necessary for the kind of work that I do. And it was really easy for people. And I found that they were opening up sometimes even quicker. And that shifted everything, because now I had an international business, as where before I had a local business in Los Angeles.
Gotcha. That's you know what? That's a great story, because it was one piece of software that really transformed your business, and that's great to hear.
It was one piece of software, and so I would say that it was that was a number one. And then Facebook, if you can call that a software, I think it is a software, isn't it?
Yeah.
An application, would be number two, because I had more visibility, and people from other countries were finding me. And in fact, I got invited to go to other countries to work from the people that were finding me on Facebook and the people that I made connections with. Just, and that's how I started traveling around the globe as well and working internationally. Somebody would just call up and invite me to come out and, you know, pretty much pay for it, and then I would be there. And I mean, even the first time I went to Australia was my first really out of the country visit. And it started off by having one particular client invite me to come out, and then somehow the word got out on Facebook that I was going to Australia, and this girl called me and asked me if I could come to her city and spend some time there. And I said, well, not really. I mean, I'm going here to visit with one client. And then she kept writing back to me and saying, well, why can't you work when you're here? You know? And she said, what if I can set up some sessions for you or whatever? And then she came back and said, well, how about if I just become your agent for all of Australia and New Zealand? And I never even thought about having an agent in this business. Um, and I said, okay, well, if it's something you really want to do and you think you can be good at it, go ahead. And the next thing I knew, like 2 weeks later, she sent me a full itinerary of private sessions I was going to be doing in Sydney and Melbourne, and actually doing group workshops as well. And that was the first time I had even put on a workshop. And so now, from just going to visit one particular client, and because of the word spreading on Facebook, I now was going to Australia for 3 months to do a tour.
That's fantastic. I love that story. Do you have the greatest stories?
I know life is really good sometimes, right? It's just, but again, this takes me back to, if I didn't start working with my spirit guides and learning how to access my own inner guidance, none of this would have ever happened. Because before, I didn't know how to manifest things. I didn't know how energy worked and how the universe responded. And, and it wasn't just that. Like, every time I travel, and like last year, I did a whole tour and really lived in the Middle East for 3 months as well. And that came about the same way, just being invited to go there. People put me up, it was magical the way these things just, come about. And again, that I'd say that Facebook played a big part. I didn't really get a majority of my business per se from Facebook, but Facebook had played a role in creating these magical experiences to happen, because there was communication and there was visibility for me on Facebook.
Fantastic.
So I'd say that Facebook and Skype have been two of the biggest, I don't even know what you call them, openers.
Transformational methods, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just creating, infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot more possibility than I had in reaching people with just a website.
Right. Lovely. So now, what book could you not live without? Is there something that's been transformational for you, whether it could be a spiritual book or even business, something that's really hit home? There's so many, right? It's like, how do you pick one?
It's really difficult. And okay, this probably is not a good answer to your question, but I really don't think there is no book I could not live without. And not to say that there is not a wealth of information and wisdom in so many books. But again, once I became aware of my spirit guides and the purpose they serve, and was beginning to connect to my own inner guidance, I kind of realized that there was no book that would give me the advanced education that I had begun receiving. And in fact, I do remember once I really started opening up to my own inner guidance that my guide specifically asked me to stop reading books and listening to other, what we might call iconic spiritual speakers. And I was asked to just accept my position as a student of the universe and learn from the wisdom of my heart. And that's basically what I did. And now I hardly read at all. Because when you think about it, every book that's been written on any subject is one person or a collective of people gathering the information, but things that they're being brought to them through their own inner guidance. So I've just come to trust my own inner guidance more than anything else. And not to say, again, that there isn't wonderful wisdom, because if I'm getting great wisdom, then so are other people, and people are putting these into books. But with the way I work, I would prefer to connect to that person individually, one-on-one. So if I know that somebody wrote a great book on something, I don't want to read the book. I want to talk to the person.
That's great. I absolutely love that answer. And I'm sitting here laughing to myself because I have a client and he will not read. His answer to me is the same that you have given me. And you're the only two people I've ever had give that answer where they say, well, I don't need it. I'm using he likes to call it his higher intelligence. I'm using my higher intelligence to give me what I need. I don't need to read what this person wrote. And he's the only other person I've heard say that, but that really says a lot because it's true. It's a collective consciousness. It came from somewhere anyway. So use your own.
Exactly. I mean, everything that, well, we'll just keep this on a spiritual level, but let's say everything that Deepak Chopra speaks about and writes about is available to everybody else.
Right.
He just opens up to it and he asks more questions, but you can know the same thing. There's nothing special. He's not gifted. He wasn't ordained in any special way. He just happened to ask.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So again, when books are wonderful because they help people to open up their imagination, but I actually like working this way better. And like I said, if I do hear of a book that's really wonderful, I may read a little bit of it, but honestly, I don't have too much time to sit down and read full-on books, but I would rather contact the person and talk to them one-on-one, even if I have to hire them.
Right. That's great advice. I really love that. And it's very unique. So any last bit of advice to someone starting their business, they're unsure, they're trying to figure out the next steps, like a golden nugget you'd like to leave them with?
I think it's important for people to understand that the universe meets you at the level you show up. So you need to show up fully in support of your own dreams and desires. And then you will attract and receive the universal synchronicities to support you equal to that of your own support for yourself. Does that make sense?
That is amazing. Absolutely makes sense.
And I would suggest that before people begin to venture out to create their business from their life passion, that they really tune into the wisdom of their hearts and find out what it is they truly want to do with their life. You know, how do you really want to spend every single day of your life? And how they want to show up in the world. And then go out and get a business coach who understands you and your business, someone that they resonate with, and I would suggest, because of what I do and how successful I know it can be, somebody who uses a coach. When I say somebody, a coach that uses their own inner guidance as well as their life experience, and then just get started. Go out and do it, because until you actually step out on that path, nothing's happening. You got to get your dream out of your head and pull it into reality. But overall, it goes back again to the most important thing is that you've got to understand that the universe meets you at the level that you show up. So if things aren't happening the way you expect them to or you want them to, then you got to go back and look at what you're doing to see, am I fully showing up for myself? Because the universe is a yes universe. If I stand in front of the mirror in the morning and say, oh God, look at this mess, what a disaster. I'm not worthy, I'm ugly, I look horrible today. The universe just says yes, because it's just there to act on how I feel about myself and what I think about myself. So I'm going to be attracting those synchronicities that just show me you're absolutely correct, Gil. But if I say, what a great guy, what a wonderful opportunity I have for life today. I can pretty much do anything I need to do. I just need to figure out what I want to do and how I need to do it. The universe says yes. So I try to teach actually my students that whenever something is not working for you, there's only one reason why, and that's because you are not fully in alignment with what you're trying to create. So what you need to do is be brave enough to ask the question, why am I not in alignment with what I'm trying to create? Ask that question. You need to find out why you are not in alignment, whatever that block is. And the block could be that you're not being proactive enough. The block could be that you've got something, that you're not even aware of that may be in your subconscious, some level of fear or something. Find out why you are not in alignment. And then the next step is simply ask, what do I need to do to become more in alignment with what I'm trying to create? What is the most important thing I need to do today to be more in alignment with what I'm trying to create? And when you get that answer, you do it. Because every time you do that thing that will bring you more into alignment, and again, sometimes that may be a shift in consciousness, looking at something from a new perspective, or actually doing something proactive that will make that shift. And when you do it, you change your vibrational frequency. You have just done one more thing now to bring you more into alignment, and you keep moving. By doing that, you keep moving up the ladder, up the scale, to get closer into actual alignment with that dream or desire, whatever you're trying to manifest. And when you do, those synchronicities will just come in. You will experience many times not having to do anything. All you have to do is hold an intention in your mind. And if you are in alignment with that intention, you don't have to do anything. The synchronicity comes into you.
Beautiful
Does that make
advice.
sense?
Oh yes, beautiful advice. I always laugh. I actually, in one of my teachings, I have a picture of a mirror, and I call it mirror mirror. Say, and it's very much the same thing. And I specifically say, if you're getting clients that you don't like or aren't paying you or aren't whatever it is, it's like, why is that? Because the clients will reflect back exactly what you are.
Absolutely. Do you have time for a quick little story?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so here's a good little story to illustrate that example. So I have another project that I've slowly been working on. It's an online magazine / website called Omibo, which is to inspire people to follow their dreams. So I've slowly been working on this in the background. So I was having a conversation in my office one day with a friend, and we were talking about Omibo. And in this project, we're going to be doing video interviews with celebrities, famous people, not so famous people, just basically interviewing people that are either setting out on the path to follow their dream, discover what their dream may be, or those people that are actually in the process of living their dream. And while we were talking about the interviews, I said, somebody I would really like to interview, I'd really like to interview Liza Minnelli. And my friend asked me why, and I said, I don't know. I just think she would make a great interview, and I think she's been through a lot. And I just think it would be a good interview. So that was it, and I left it at that. The next night, I'm out to dinner with my friend Lisa, and we're talking and eating and having a great time. And the next day, Lisa calls me and says, I know this is a little bit out of the blue, but and I don't even know if you'd have any desire to do this, but would you have any desire to go with me like tomorrow night to see Liza Minnelli in concert? And I'm kind of laughing to myself because Lisa didn't know anything about my conversation about the interviews. And I said, well, yeah, I said, well, first of all, I said, I didn't even know she was still performing, but if she is, I'd love to go with you. So she said, great, I'll pick you up, tomorrow night. So we're there at Disney Concert Hall here in Los Angeles, and a friend of Lisa's comes up to us and says, hey, by the way, after the show, don't leave, come and meet us down by the door down here. And so after the show, we went to meet her friend, and he says, follow me. And we start walking through this path, through these different corridors and different places. And we get up to this little area, and there's a guard there. And he says, what's your name? And we all gave them our names. And he said, okay, you're good to go. And we're going. And I asked this guy, Mark, I said, where are we going? And he said, we're going to the green room. And I said, the green room, what is that? And he said, that's where the performers come out to greet people after the show. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is great. I'm going to see Liza Minnelli. So we go in, and actually we're the first people that are there in the room. And then slowly it starts to fill up with celebrities and other people. And, but I didn't see any Liza. So my friends I was with kind of drifted off, and we're talking to other people. And then I'm looking for something to drink. And all of a sudden I hear Liza's voice, and I turn around, and she's standing there, crowded by a group of people that are, talking to her. And I hear her say, oh my God, I'm so tired. I've got to sit down. So I look across the room, and I only see like a line of chairs up against this wall. And I heard my guides tell me, go now. That's all I heard. And I didn't even think about it. I just acted on it and reacted in that moment. And I don't know how I made my way through the crowd. I remember like RuPaul was there, and I pushed him like right out of the way. And before I knew it, there I was standing in front of Liza Minnelli. I didn't even realize how tiny she was. I always thought she was this tall woman, but she's a tiny little thing. And I'm standing over her, and she's looking up at me like, who the hell are you? And just instinctively, I got down on my knees. So I was like on her level, and I'm in front of her, and I just took her hand, and I was holding her hand, and I said, I just had to come over and talk to you. And I said, I was blown away by the amount of love that was just like pouring out to you. I said, did you feel it? And she said, yes, I did. And I said, it was amazing. It was like a show in itself. I said, these people didn't care if you, sat there in a wheelchair and just like read out of the phone book. They just loved her. And this love was just pouring out. And she said, I felt it. It was amazing. And I said, well, lady, I just want you to know that you deserve it. From all the energy and the work that you've put out over the years, and you get on stage and you just like give it your all. And I said, you deserve it. You deserve every bit of it. And she started to cry. Oh. And she just said, thank you so much. And I said, I would really love to interview you. And she said, well, after that, I would love to have you interview me. And she's like, what TV show are you with, and what magazine? And I said, I'm not with any of them. I said, it's my own startup thing that I'm doing. And she said, tell me about it. And I said, it's It's an online magazine to inspire people to follow their dreams. And I said, who better than to interview than, I said, you've done it all. You've won every award, Tonys, Grammys, Oscars, and your ups and downs, and you're still here and you're still on stage. And I said, what a life. I said, what a person to interview. And she just said, I would be honored to have you interview me. And then she hugged me and kissed me, and I said, okay, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'll be in touch with your publicist. And I walked away with an interview with Liza Minnelli.
That's a great story. I love it.
Now think about the beginning. What did I do? All I did was make an intention. I just made a statement, basically, and everything fell into place. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, yes, I did act on my guidance I was receiving. If I didn't go forward and move through the crowd, nothing would have happened. But it goes to show you. And at that moment, I obviously was in alignment because I was working on the magazine. I had a heartfelt intention, and everything just came together. And I've experienced that more than once, but that was like a brief kind of recent story that I wanted to just use as an example of how energy works. And when you're in the right place, meaning when you're at the right energetic level, sometimes that's all you have to do is just have that desire, have that intention, state it out loud, whatever it is, and the synchronicities will just come in.
Extraordinary story. But yeah, it's so true, from the smallest things to interviewing Liza Minnelli. That's fantastic.
Absolutely, it is. And you're right. They're from the smallest things to the most extraordinary things.
Yeah, wonderful. Well,
that's what makes up life, right?
Definitely. You have been amazing. I love your stories.
I've got more.
We're going to have to do this again. If my listeners wanted to find you and get in touch with their selves and do what you do, where would they find you?
Relaxing on a beach in Costa Rica. No, just kidding, but not really. They can easily find me at gilallen.com, and that's spelled G-I-L for Gil, and last name Allen is A-L-A-N. So that's gilallan.com, gilallen.com.
Fantastic.
You've been listening to Spiritual Biz Chat with Kimberly Maska. Inspiration for spiritual entrepreneurs. Hear our latest interviews and join our spiritual family at spiritualbizmagazine.com.